Well, it did rain at Spa in the Ardennes forest. The problem was it rained too hard for too long, as a result of which they delayed the start by over an hour, and that basically robbed the world of a wet Belgian Grand Prix. Yeah, there were a couple of laps where the track was pretty wet and there was a bit of mist and stuff in the air and it was difficult to see. But as Max Verstappen said as he was behind the safety car, if we do more than 2 laps behind the safety car, and they did 4, then for sure the track will be dry by lap 5 of the race. And he was about right. It was. Now, whether or not this was a good decision, there were no accidents, there were no incidents, there were no injuries. But at the end of the day, this could have been a brilliant Belgian Grand Prix in the wet. It didn't even have a standing start either. And I guess there'll be lots of discussion in the days after this race about whether this was the right way to go or whether we were robbed of what could have been, as I say, a sensational wet Belgian Grand Prix. And of course, in terms of the lineup of all the cars and drivers, there were some who had high downforce settings that wanted to go out in the wet, some who didn't want to go out in the wet. And if you landed Norris on the pole, you thought, well, I've got the clear track in the rain, I've earned that right, let's go racing. Well, it didn't happen, so that advantage was taken away from Lando. He was then given, like everybody else, the rolling start, which in theory was an advantage for Lando because it mitigated the problems of maybe getting the car off the line, the first corner, the locking up, whatever could have happened in La Source. So that was taken away. But what it did was give Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren, who'd qualified second, a really good look at Lando as they went down the hill behind the pits towards Eau Rouge. And from Oscar's point of view, the real opportunity to take the lead in this Grand Prix, racing as they were, these 2 McLaren drivers, was going to be on that opening lap, because once Lando was settled, it was potentially going to be more difficult to get into a tow and to be close enough to do the pass. So Oscar went for it. But interestingly, if you look at the traces going down the hill, it was Oscar who was backing off, going down the hill behind the pits in 7th gear. He got into 7th earlier than Lando, even though Oscar's in P2. He backs off a little bit in 7th just to give him a little bit of room behind Lando. And of course, at this moment, Lando probably isn't looking at his mirrors, but he can probably feel that Oscar's just timing a perfect maneuver. And indeed he does. He backs off less than Lando through Eau Rouge. He's got the momentum at the top of the hill by about 2 kilometers an hour. But then once in the tow of the McLaren, albeit a tow shrouded in mist and rain and vapor, albeit that, he pulls out of the tow and he's got something like an exponential increase of 7 to 8 kilometers an hour over Lando Norris. It's an easy thing. Too easy indeed, because Lando's top speed as he goes down that straight is only 306 kilometers an hour. I mean, even Max Verstappen with massive wing on the Red Bull is doing 313 on that opening lap. So what happened there? Well, what happened was that as the poleman behind the safety car, Lando used up more energy from his battery to do the start. So Lando paid the penalty indeed of being on the pole, of having to do these laps behind the safety car and then having to do the safety car start. They got it back within a lap and then he was matching Oscar for top speed. But on that critical opening run up the straight, he was something like 7 kilometers an hour down on where he should have been. Probably Oscar would have got him anyway because he had the slipstream, but it made it easy for Oscar. He was well past before they got to the braking area. And after that, as Lando said after the race, it was basically all over. Oscar was the first to stop, giving Lando the lead, and it was a good pit stop for Oscar Piastri. But when Lando came in, there was a balk on the left front. It wasn't put on absolutely straight, and they had to just move it around. It was about 1.3 seconds added to that pit stop time, which didn't help, of course. And they put on the hard tyre for Lando Norris. There's a bit of a discussion just before he came in. What do you think about going to the hard, Lando? And he said yes, as he came into the pit lane. Now that's okay, because, and I quite understand that, because if he's lost the momentum, he's lost the lead, he might as well try something different to Oscar to see whether it'll pay off. Obviously, the thinking is he could go through to the finish, the mediums could be marginal. And for a while out there, it looked as if Lando might indeed have caught Oscar. It was about 8 seconds by the time he rejoined and won the Belgian Grand Prix. But he didn't. On the face of it, he made 2 mistakes. He ran wide at Pouin lap 26, and then he had a lock-up going into La Source shortly after that. But both of those moments were timed with the approach of cloud over the circuit again. It had been sunny for quite a while as they went to the slick tyres. Approach of cloud, ambient and track temperature dropped dramatically. And at that point, the hard tyre was the compound you did not want to be on. Lando was the only driver out there. And although he was pushing hard, yes, he was starting to lose grip. The medium tyre was the one to be on. And because of that drop in temperature, the medium then became a very good tyre to take to the end of the race. Even Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who didn't have a lot of downforce, found he had pretty good grip. More grip than Max Verstappen at the end of the race. They were racing for third and fourth. Max had more downforce. In theory, was going to be kinder to his tyres. But Max lost the fronts in the last 3 laps of the race when those ambients went down. It became a very different racetrack yet again. So it was Oscar Piastri who won the race after qualifying second. Very good win. A win in the way of Alan Jones and Jack Brabham. We've said that before. Just to sweep past his teammate at the end of the straight on the opening lap and then to pull away and to win the Grand Prix. An emphatic victory for Oscar after the Austrian and British Grand Prix when it looked as if the momentum was going in the direction of Lando. For me, one of the most fascinating moments of the race was to see Lando's face when he took off his helmet and mask in Parc Fermé. And sure enough, it was not the traditional Lando Norris smile when that happened. A lot of things did not go right for him today. And he could look back at this and say it all started by being on the pole and having to do so many laps behind the safety car and using that energy that he had to in order to control the pace of the field behind him. Had it been a normal standing start, that probably wouldn't have happened. And maybe Oscar wouldn't have got the lead on that first lap. Lots of maybes, of course. The biggest maybe of all, of course, is Max Verstappen's and Red Bull's choice to run so much wing on their car. It wasn't really a gamble in terms of was it going to rain. It was pretty clear it was going to be wet. But we're in an era of Formula One now, particularly on a circuit like Spa with so many fast corners, where everybody, when I say everybody, the rule makers, the stewards, Liberty, the FIA, are very, very safety conscious and very conservative in the way they apply the rules. And even in the wet, when Max in theory had an advantage, there was nothing he could do. Charles had at least 3 to 4 kilometers an hour at the end of the straight in the wet, and it was only wet for 4 or 5 laps. And then when it started to dry out and they were on slicks, the difference lap after lap after lap was 9 kilometers an hour between Charles and Max Verstappen. Max would pull back maybe 0.3, 0.4 through sector 2. Yes, he had more grip, but Charles drove beautifully with that pressure and used the Ferrari perfectly in terms of its top speed advantage and not making any mistakes, apart from one lockup late in the race, to withstand the pressure from Max and to finish a very, very good third. But you got to say, and to repeat the point, in terms of Formula One in 2025 and how conservative the rule makers are now when it rains, is it ever going to be worth taking a gamble again and running setups of that extreme the way Red Bull did? Because to get any sort of advantage today, Max would have needed the track to be really, really wet. He would have needed the track to be exactly what it was when the race was due to start. They went out, did a formation lap, aborted the start, came in and sat around for an hour waiting for the track to dry. And at that moment, of course, the whole advantage, any advantage that Red Bull might have had, was flushed down the storm drains. Anyway, very good drive by Charles, as I say, and at the back of the grid, good drive too by Lewis Hamilton, up from 16th to finish P7. Looked very good for a while. George Russell got past Alex Albon without too much trouble. Mind you, they are mates. Well, they were mates. I think they're still mates. But Lewis on a charge, passing some reasonably quick cars, the Liam Lawsons of this world, for example. But then when he got behind Alex, he just couldn't get past. A while ago, if you'd said Lewis Hamilton was going to be stuck behind Alex Albon for most of the Belgian Grand Prix, Alex in a Williams Mercedes, Lewis in a Ferrari, you would have said, yeah, give me a break. But that's what happened. And I think we need to see Lewis's drive in that context. In the car that Charles Leclerc used to finish third and to outrace Max Verstappen, Lewis still couldn't get past Alex Albon. Now, that's not a Lewis Hamilton criticism per se. It's obviously to do with Ferrari as well. It's to do with the setup of the car. It's to do with all sorts of things. Lewis was the first to stop, to change, to go to slicks. And that's what enabled him to vault past a lot of cars. But when he got to Albon, it was just like this impenetrable barrier that he was never able to break through. So Lewis finished 7th behind Alex Albon, and all credit to Alex Albon for that drive around Spa. P6 for Williams Mercedes. Fabulous drive, really. Liam Lawson did well on a day when Isaac Hadjar had no power and finished right at the back of the field. But Liam did a good job, scored points, finished 8th, ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. Another very good drive from him in the Sauber Ferrari. At one point, he said, tell Nico he needs to go a bit quicker, he needs to get past, I think it was Ocon. And they said, oh no, we'll just swap places. So that's what happened. Not sure what Nico Hülkenberg thought about that. But Gabriel finished 9th, Pierre Gasly 10th. Another classic gritty Pierre Gasly drive, always in there, really finishing a lot higher probably than that Alpine deserves at the moment in terms of its grip and handling. And if you look at Franco Colapinto way down in 18th place yet again, wonder how Jack Doohan would have gone. Ollie Behrman finished 11th again. I think that's the 4th time in a row he's finished 11th for Haas Ferrari, just out of the points, but consistent, that's for sure. Should take into account all the drama of Silverstone, of course, and the penalties there. Nico was 12th, Nico Hülkenberg was 12th. Yuki Tsunoda was 13th after a weird thing on the radio in which they got their pit stops messed up. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, it was as if the Aston Martins were not really there. Esteban Ocon 15th, Kimi Antonelli 16th. Lots going on at the back there, DRS trains and so forth, but the real race was at the front. It wasn't a race in terms of being close. It was Oscar Piastri all the way. He did have to think about whether those mediums could make it to the end, but he was helped, as I say, by the drop in ambient temperature, and then also by having no real pressure from Lando and being able to drive around the fronts and look after the left front particularly and keep away from the graining. Excellent job by Oscar Piastri throughout the Belgian Grand Prix from start to finish. So on this occasion it was very close between the two McLaren drivers, but McLaren didn't have to do any decision making other than to ask both of them to sort of slow down as they crossed the line for a photo finish. Not a photo finish in terms of being close, but a photo finish and both being in the same shot. But for a while it looked as if Lando had the advantage, having the pole as he did, but then Oscar immediately sees that back on lap 1, and after that there was really no decisions to be made because Oscar was never going to lose that Belgian Grand Prix, that's for sure. So that was the weekend at Spa. I don't think Terry Newell was there today. He was there yesterday to present the Pirelli Award to Lando, and probably when he was watching on TV he was thinking, why aren't they going out? The wet, we love the rain, go out there guys, let's see it. But no, they didn't. They just sat around and waited. And it wasn't a good thing. I don't think it was a good look for Formula One. But anyway, I was really looking forward to a wet race, and we didn't get it. We just got a parade instead. I suppose that, and I think the powers that be again will say, well, we timed it perfectly because the rain came later on. We just got the race out there when it was nice and dry. I don't think that's what Formula One's all about. I think Formula One is racing in all conditions, and we lost that opportunity today. That's only my personal opinion. Before we go, a quick word about the Ayrton Senna 98T REC watch, which you can still pre-order. One of the 989 limited edition REC watches commemorating the Lotus 98T Renault Turbo driven by Ayrton Senna in the last half of the 1986 season, car designed by Gerard Ducarouge, the last Formula One Lotus to race in black and gold as well. And the aluminium inlet plenum tubes at the top of the engine have been reworked to form the tachymeter of this watch. Absolutely superb DNA in a watch that commemorates not only a great car but also obviously a great driver, Ayrton Senna. And you can order one of those by going to the details in the description below this video. Don't take too long because they're going quickly now, not too many left. Swiss-made automatic watch, beautifully presented as you can see, and it enables you to wear a little bit of great Formula One history on your wrist. And a big thanks to our other sponsors, to Jetcraft, to Track Ninja, to OEM Exclusive, and to you, of course, for watching. We'll be back with more videos very soon. And of course, it's the Hungarian Grand Prix coming up as well. Never ending. See you then.